Okay, shalom everyone. Today we'll conclude the prayers that are at the end of the morning prayers. Tomorrow there's a few paragraphs about Kaddish. We'll try to amalgamate them, but really today we are finishing all the laws of the morning service. And so this is Rav Melamed is writing like the majority of the Jewish communities, where after Uva Tzion, which we learned about yesterday. There's Shir Shayom, Alein En Kelohenu, and then Aleinu. Of course, Nusach Ashkenaz is Aleinu first, and then Shir Shayom, and we don't say En Kelohenu during the week. So let's just try to figure it out. After Shir Shayom, it is customary to recite Pitum HaKetoret, meaning the way that the incense was made by the Kohanim, preceded by En Kelohenu, the statement of there is no one else but our God. There are two reasons for its recital. The first is that Pitum HaKetoret corresponds to the incense which was offered every morning and evening in a temple. The second is so that every Jew may merit learning rabbinic teachings daily, like we talked about yesterday, that just like after Birkot Torah, we try to mention verses from the Torah, from the Mishnah, and from the Talmud. The same way at the end of the service, especially for those who missed the beginning of the service, we can do the same exact thing. In the Zohar, Chazal greatly praises the recital of Pitum HaKetoret, asserting that we are saved through its virtue from many calamities. Also, in the temple, when the Kohanim would bring it, they would have a lottery to bring the incense, and it caused people to become rich. There's opinions that say that even after that lottery, you were not allowed to participate again until like the next cycle, until the next year when your family was back for service. There are those who say that one must be very careful not to omit mentioning even one spice from the incense, because there's a verse that we read on Shabbat that says that if you missed one of the spices, you're liable to death. Therefore, it was not recited on weekdays in fear that a person rushing to get to work would skip over one of the spices. That's Ramah's explanation in Shulchan Aruch. And maybe we'll go back to that, just mentioning what we said yesterday. When a person goes to shul and has a proper routine of when they go and what time their synagogue prays in the morning, etc., it's really on us to take control of the time. And it's more of a philosophical idea than a law, which is basically I don't make a doctor's appointment at 9 o'clock if I know that davening finishes at 5 to 9. I don't go to a special meeting, and if I do have to start a meeting, let's say at 9 o'clock, I don't go to the usual minyan. I go to an early one. So I'm in control of my time. I know that I have to go to sleep earlier that night. I have to arrange my morning slightly differently. And on Sunday, I was very, very fortunate that I was able to daven nets with the community here in Toronto, and it was only because of this idea of we are in control of our time. So we'll learn in a second about Aleinu, not to leave the shul before Aleinu. So this is the idea that if we are afraid that we're going to skip one of the spices because we are in a hurry, then that's probably why it was omitted during the week. In practice, it is the opinion of the majority of poskim that there is no need to be very meticulous regarding this, because we are not actually making the incense. We're just mentioning that this is how it was done in the temple. However, lechatchila, it is proper to recite the passages from the Siddur, so not to skip a word. And like I said, Nusach Ashkenaz doesn't even say it during the week. So we understand now the context of what he's talking about. So before we go into the custom to read the Aleinu, I just wanted to show you the first paragraph of Aleinu and try to understand what we're going to be discussing. So we're very familiar with this, but I will highlight two things. One is that it starts with Aleinu l'shabech. We are obligated to praise Hashem for creating us and for making us, and that He didn't make us like the other nations. And then this verse here, which in the Art Scroll Siddur appears in parentheses, Shehem mishtachavim level varik, that they bow down to nothingness and emptiness or vacuum. Umitpalim el Yoshia. So in our Siddurim, it's in parentheses, and a lot of people skip it, especially since it doesn't fit the tune where we start Aleinu l'shabeach, etc. And then V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim, that we bow down before Hashem. So according to most Rishonim, Rishonim are the rabbis who were after the Geonim. According to most Rishonim, when Rav, who was the Amorah from the first generation of the Talmud, when he established this prayer of Aleinu Shabeach, it was only for the saying on Rosh Hashanah during Malchuyot. So the verses that we say for the kingship of Hashem or the reignship of Hashem, and the verses that we say for Zichronot and Shofarot, in Malchuyot, he established this prayer to say at that time, and we don't know for sure when it started becoming a daily thing. Of course, today, one of the rabbis mentioned that we say the Aleinu even more times than we say the Shema. And so if I went even, so there's the Ayin here at the beginning and the Dalet here, and also at the second paragraph, it begins with an Ayin and ends with a Dalet, right? And so that reminds us of Shema Yisrael, Shem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, where the Ayin and the Dalet are written like capital letters in English. So why is this verse Shem Mishtachavim Le'Rik in parentheses? First, we'll see the two sources that the verses are actually from. So in Isaiah 30, it says Mitzrayim Hevel Varik. So those two words are the idea of vain and empty. And Mitpalim el Yoshia, also from Isaiah chapter 45, verse 20, that they are the ones who pray to a God that will not help them or save them. And so in around 1400, just towards the end of the Crusades, there was a Jewish person who turned to be Christian, and he was helping them with the censorship. How do we know that it was only the Christian censorship? Because in all the Sephardi Sidurim, it was never put in parentheses. The censorship did not remove this verse, and so it is appropriate to say it. And so they removed it because what he claimed was that varik, this word here, is the same numerical value as Jesus's Hebrew name. And so he was basically saying the Jews are saying that our God is nothingness, is emptiness, and so that's why they're so happy to say this prayer, and of course that's why it stopped being said like that. And so let's just stop the share and go back to the actual Peninei Halacha and conclude there. So. It is customary to recite Aleinu Shabech at the conclusion of the prayer service in order to instill in our hearts faith in Hashem and in our promised redemption before we leave off from prayer. Thus strengthened, when we afterwards encounter Gentiles at work or in the course of the day, we won't be enticed by their gods and beliefs. And that's the Bach, who was the son-in-law of Rabbeinu Asher, one of the Rishonim, one of the later Rishonim. And so, again, it was started being said around that time every single day, but there was censorship and they were afraid to say certain things. And the reason why Nusach Ashkenaz, as far as I know, moved it before Shir Shayom, before the Psalm of the Day, is because the Shulchan Aruch doesn't mention Aleinu at all. He just says that you're not allowed to leave the shul before Uval Tzion, before the end of Uval Tzion. So the Ashkenaz custom, when it was started saying Aleinu Shabeach, which was around the same time, they basically said, okay, so we're not going to leave until after Aleinu, but we're going to move Aleinu before the Psalm of the Day, and of course the Ketoret and Aleinu was omitted from the daily prayer. And last but not least, due to the significance of this prayer, it is customarily recited while standing, and one bows slightly when saying the words V'anachnu korim. And of course, on Rosh Hashanah, we actually do the full prostration because that was where the source of this prayer was originally said. Last but not least, just one more comment. There's a tradition that Joshua is the one who wrote it when he came into the land. It's mentioned in the Kolbo, and he said that Joshua recited Aleinu 7 times forward and backwards, and that's how the walls of Jericho fell. And the same rabbi mentions that Al Ken Nekaveh are the acronym for the name Achan. Achan was the man who took from the loot of Jericho and caused 36 men of the Jewish people to die. And so it is part of his confession where he basically said, we do have the belief in Hashem. Hashem is in charge. Hashem does give reward and punishment for everything. And Hashem is the supreme divine hashgacha, providence. So we'll stop here.